What's happening? Good Thursday to all of you. Thanks for joining us as always. It is much appreciated. And you know what we're talking about today an awful lot. We're talking about the NBA Finals, Warriors versus Celtics. We'll mix in some Kings. We'll mix in some 49ers. We'll mix in some special guests every single hour. But let me break down this series for you and give you my pick. Celtics Warriors, if both teams are healthy, and that's a big if. Gary Payton II, Andre Iguodala, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, Otto Porter. If both teams are healthy, this should be a great series. This should be fantastic basketball. This should go 6 or 7 games. If both teams are healthy, I expect a long, dramatic, fun series. Now, when you look at the pundits, myself, JJ, and Chris did this in the office today. JJ went through like 3 or 4 different websites, right? When you look at the pundits, when you look at the quote-unquote experts, it's about 3-1 by our count that they like the Warriors. The pundits like the Warriors. Vegas likes the Warriors. But the analytics like Boston. So how much do you put in the analytics versus the pundits, the experts, in Vegas? This is a fascinating series. Here was Steph Curry talking about his team being back in the finals.
I mean, just the confidence in who we are, knowing Clay was coming back, but I got a lot of juice from that, last 20 games last year, and you could feel like we were close to being in that conversation where you're a serious contender to come out of the West, whatever that means. Time would tell, but I got a lot of juice from that finish. Obviously, I was playing well, figuring it out, and then coming into this year, I still was surprised by our start, like I said, but that was the gas in the tank for the whole summer and for the start of this year, knowing that we're going to be a problem this year. And we got 4 more wins to make it all worth it, but it's a good feeling.
Now, a tremendous challenge for Steph Curry and the Warriors is going to be the size of the Celtics. If you've watched them during the playoffs, which I know many of you have, this team is big. This team has length. This team plays with physicality. There is no team that the Warriors have played this postseason, and I know some people might say, well, the Grizzlies are pretty physical. There's no team that the Warriors have played during their path to the finals that will be as physical as the Celtics. The Celtics have gone through Milwaukee, a ridiculously physical team, even without Chris Middleton. Middleton's one of the least physical guys on that roster, especially in the starting 5. But Milwaukee is tremendously physical. Miami, very, very physical. They want to have a fist fight in a phone booth. So when you look at Milwaukee and Miami, the challenge of physically stepping up, that's something the Celtics have done. The Warriors, not so much. How do the Warriors handle that change? How do they handle the physicality? How do they handle the athleticism? And how do they handle the length of the Celtics? Celtics have, 5, 6 guys that can challenge you at any moment. They've got 3, 4, 5 guys that can play 3, 4, 5 positions. That's a different challenge for the Warriors in this series. Here was Steve Kerr talking about Boston.
What I see in Boston is a great defensive team, super athletic, a team that has continuity. They've been in the playoffs year after year with the same core. So it's a team that has worked its way to this point in a very natural, organic way. Traditionally this is how it's supposed to work in the NBA. If you look at over the years, you grow a team through the draft, you take your lumps in the playoffs, you climb up, and then you get to the finals.
So you've got the Warriors having to deal with the Celtics' physicality and length and athleticism. Not something they've dealt with during this postseason run. On the other side, you have the Celtics having to deal with the Warriors. And the Warriors, their constant movement, ball movement, man movement, their execution, every single solitary tenth of a second matters against this offense. That's something the Celtics have not faced in this postseason. The Nets, isolation, KD, Kyrie. Then you go to Milwaukee, a lot of isolation with Giannis. It's going to be Giannis trying to get into the lane, or it's going to be those guys taking tons of threes. Miami, half-court offense, not fantastic. Aside from Jimmy Butler, especially with Tyler Hero out in that series for a number of games. There weren't many options for Miami to go to that the Celtics would feel they'd be hurt by those options. Warriors are different, man. They're a different animal, right? They move a lot. They have a number of guys who can score the ball. So just as the Warriors try to prepare for that physicality, length, and athleticism, the Celtics have to prepare for that execution, that offense, that scoring, the explosiveness that the Warriors bring to the table. This is a different kind of team that the Celtics will defend in this finals than they've had to defend in the first 3 series of this postseason. Here's Grant Williams talking about it.
Yeah, they're unlike any other team. We've been through a team of great isolation players. We've been through a team that has a dominant man that can then play any position and guard any position. And then we played a team that is the most physical and grueling versus this team. I feel like has that physical nature, but they're a lot more able to make shots, or a lot more movement, a lot more chasing. And I feel like our team's built for that. We're built for not only that, but also the physical nature. So chasing those guys like Steph, Clay, Jordan, we know exactly how much they move off the ball. Now they're just as much of a threat on the ball as they are off. So you have to take priority and understand what you want to take away from them, but also what you want to accomplish as a defense.
Nick Cattle Show, the constant cutting to the basket, right? It's just nonstop with the Warriors. They're a conditioning machine. Very, very difficult challenge for the Celtics. And I wonder, how would the Celtics approach the Warriors defensively? You can do it 2 ways. You can switch a lot like the Celtics have done. They're the most switchy team, as they call it, in the NBA. They switch a ton. They've got 5 guys out there that can defend multiple positions. The versatility that they attack offenses with. Defensively, it's very difficult. Robert Williams, if he's healthy, he's roaming around as the rover, and he can contest shots from 6-7 feet out. We saw that against Miami several times. But will the Celtics switch as much as they usually switch, or will they start to drop the coverage with their big men? And that's going to be fascinating to watch, because against Milwaukee, against Miami, the Celtics dropped more in coverage than you thought, which means the big man drops into the paint, right? They're not necessarily challenging the shooters or contesting the shots as they usually do. I don't think the Celtics will do that against the Warriors. I think if you play drop coverage against Golden State, you're dead in the water. I think the Celtics will switch, and they will switch constantly. And you will have a lot of different guys. We talk about matchups all the time, right? Back in the 90s, early 2000s, oh, well, this guy versus that guy versus this guy. In this series, especially when the Warriors are on offense, I don't think you're going to be able to play that game as much, because the Celtics are just going to constantly switch. And it'll be fascinating to see how the Warriors handle that, because there aren't a lot of teams in the NBA that switch as much as the Celtics do. The Grizzlies do a decent amount of that, but the Celtics, they're at another level. For Golden State, how much zone will they play defensively? Steve Kerr loves throwing stuff against the wall to try to slow offenses down. He'll throw the kitchen sink at you. You saw that late in that Mavericks series, right? All of a sudden, final couple games, they went to zone. They went to zone against Luka. They said, hey, figure it out. They played some, boxing one against Luka Doncic. They'll throw a bunch of stuff at you. How much zone will Golden State play? Also, how much will they blitz and double Jason Tatum? If you watch the end of that Game 7 against Miami, Miami blitzed and doubled Tatum in those final 3 or 4 minutes, and the Celtics offense just slammed on the brakes and did nothing. How much will they double Tatum? How much will they blitz him and get the basketball out of his hands? And then you've got the experience factor. The Warriors have been in the finals constantly, right? I mean, the last 7-8 years. It's been the Warriors almost every single year, it feels like, aside from the last couple, as we know. But they've been there before. The Celtics have not. The Celtics do not have a single player on this roster that has played in an NBA Finals game. Here's Ime Udoka, their head coach.
We can kind of give our advice on what's to come, but once we get out there, I think what's really been good about our group is they're not caught up in the moment. The Game 7s, playing on the road, you see our record, and more so than anything, it's just basketball. At the end of the day, that's what we try to stress, and I think that's the benefit of our group being so young and approaching it that way.
3 more things. How much will Jordan Poole play in this series? He has been a defensive albatross the last couple of series. The Celtics will pick on him if he's out there. How many minutes does he play? Secondly, the glass, the rebounding. Golden State has been tremendous on the offensive glass. The Celtics are not a good defensive rebounding team. If they give second chance points to the Warriors, they're going to lose this series. The Warriors will attack the glass, especially Wiggins and Looney when they're out there. And if they win the glass, like they're capable of winning, they win the series. Who wins the turnover battle? Both teams are bad turning the basketball over. Both teams have these stretches where they can't hang on to the basketball. Who wins the turnover battle? So at the end of the day, the question is, who do I think is going to win this series? And I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors in 7. And I just keep going back to one word. The one word, I said this to JJ and Verlade in the office before the show. I did not give them the word. But I keep going back to one word when I look at this series. That is the difference. That word is execution. The Warriors are a better team when it comes to execution. They're on the same page. They've run this offense and defense for a long, long time. They know the pressure of the finals. They've been in the biggest of big moments, and they execute. They have a much better chance of executing for a full 48 minutes than the Celtics do. And when you've watched the Celtics play, and I've watched them play all season long, and I've watched every single playoff game, they will have these lulls. And you saw it at the end of Game 7 against Miami. The lack of execution offensively, almost giving up a 13-point lead in the final few minutes in that Game 7 against a team that's not very good offensively. If you have that kind of lull against the Warriors, they're going to blow you out of the gym. What would be a 14-4 run against Miami, against Golden State? That's going to be a 22-6 run. Those lulls that I've seen from the Celtics way too often will bite them in this series. I'm going Warriors in 7. I want your thoughts. Who do you got? Celtics, Warriors, how many games? 916-339-1140 is the text line. Phone line 1-800-920-1140. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick C Radio. I will get Chris's prediction. I will get JJ's prediction. Also coming up in 90 seconds, the 49ers have lost a vital piece to the puzzle.
It's the Nick Cattle Show.
This, I think, speaks to the power of the media and the power of
The Nick Cattle Show.
On Sports 1140 KHTK.
By the way, I just tweeted out the question of the day for you. Of course, it's about the NBA Finals. At Nick C Radio on Twitter. Who wins? Warriors or the Celtics? Who wins? And now I will give you this caveat. I picked the Warriors in 7, if you're wondering. If you're just jumping into your car, I've got Golden State in 7 because of execution. And if you want to expand it, I'd say execution and experience. I will have this caveat as I bring up the Twitter poll question of the day for the NBA Finals. I know that the vast majority of people that follow me are likely Celtics fans from my time in New England. So I would expect the answer to that question to be the Celtics in the majority. And so far, that's what's happening. The Celtics have it at 64.1%. The Warriors, 35.9%. Who do you think wins? Warriors, option A. Celtics, option B. At Nick C Radio on Twitter. I want to get to the Niners losing a vital piece to the puzzle, but before I do that, I want to hear from Verlad and JJ. Let's start with Verlad. Verlad, who do you have winning the finals and why?
What do you mean by choosing between them?
You got to. Sorry.
Okay. I've got the Warriors, and I think Boston is coming in so beat up from going up against Miami. The Warriors didn't really face that much adversity. They lost GP2 early, but he's coming back. I think it's just I told Jay, I think if Celtics are coming in completely healthy, I think they have a really good shot of beating them. I just don't see it. Also, one of the stats I saw earlier in the day, I think it was from Kawakami, their fourth quarters at home are plus 44 in the playoffs, which is, and that's been a problem for Boston. So
my goodness. I'll say this about Chris's take. There are two ways to look at the Celtics path. One way is what Chris just said. You went through Milwaukee, you went through Miami, and it's funny, people almost forget that they went through Brooklyn, and I know Brooklyn wasn't who Brooklyn was supposed to be, but they went through Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Like that's not easy. So they've gone through those three good teams, and I've said, look, this is not hindsight, people. I said during the season, I thought Miami was the most dangerous team that nobody was talking about. Was I surprised that Miami pushed that to 7 games? No, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shocked. The Celtics, I think, could have won that series in 5 if it wasn't for a couple of quarters, literally in games 1 and 3. But that's why I'm picking the Warriors in this series, because they have those lulls. They have those bad quarters. If you get outscored by Miami by 25 and a quarter, if that's Golden State, you're going to lose that quarter by 40. So it's those quarters where they lack execution and they have these lulls. But there's two ways to look at what Chris said. One is what Chris said. A lot of physicality. They got banged up. They're going to be tired. They're going to be worn out. Warriors had an easier path. You could also look at it and say, well, the Celtics have gone through that physical, tough kind of postseason, and now as they play the Warriors, they're not going to face that level of physicality and intensity, and it's almost going to free up the Celtics, and they might actually play better because they know this is not a heavyweight fight on the body. We'll have to wait and see how they react. JJ, who do you got and why?
Yeah, it's a couple things, and I'm glad you pointed out the word execution. Couple things for me when it comes to the NBA is this. Number one, it's a stars league. You win with stars. The Warriors have more stars. Celtics have a star for me. The problem with that is Steph Curry is probably going to average 30. Can Jason Tatum match him as he's matched Kevin Durant, as he's matched Giannis in many times, as he's matched Jimmy Butler in times? And I'm just not sold on it. I need to see it to believe it. And I do think this is his last step as growth. As Jason Tatum's a top 10 guy for me, but I need him to match a star when it matters, and it matters now because it's the finals. The other part of it for me is it's crazy because I think the Celtics were almost built to stop the Warriors, which is crazy because now we get to see it. But as I've said before, I think the Celtics are just a little bit before their time, and I think if they were playing anyone else beside the Warriors, they'd win the championship. With all that being said, give me the Warriors in 6. I think Steph Curry is the MVP, and I think he has a little chip on his shoulder, and he wants to prove and show. And, hey, look, this is my MVP to win it, and I think that's why everybody's picking him. I'll take the Warriors in 6.
Nick Cattle Show on a Thursday. You do look at this team in Boston, and they look like the team, as JJ just said, that was kind of built defensively to bother the Warriors, and they have. Right? I mean, we can look at the Warriors' numbers, and look, the Warriors are going to score to a certain point because they're the Warriors. The offense is just a great offense. But when you look at how the Celtics have performed against the Warriors' offense versus other teams in the NBA, the Celtics have had much better luck. They're the only team in the NBA that has a winning record against Golden State from when Steve Kerr took over. So they've had more success against Golden State than any other team in the NBA. I do wonder this, too. And by the way, Frankie, our guy, Carticelli, says he's got the Warriors in 7. YouTube channel, check us out, Sports 1140, KHDK on YouTube. Run DMG says, let's go Celtics. Philip Cole says, Boston in 7, best defense I've seen in a while. You can weigh in with your thoughts about this series on the YouTube channel as well. Again, it's Sports 1140 KHTK. The one thing you do wonder, as I said, I'm picking the Warriors because I think they will out-execute the Celtics in the series. And as JJ said, that next step in the development of Jason Tatum, you wonder if that kind of goes across with the Celtics themselves, right? This is a team that hasn't always focused. They have these lulls. That's why I have the Warriors winning. You wonder if this is part of the process that they almost have to go through. That after seeing how the Warriors execute as consistently as they do, maybe it's the wake-up call. Now, do the Celtics wake up in the middle of the series and play better? Maybe. Or maybe this is one of those things where they have to go through it, and then they look back on the season and they say, that's what kept us from winning the chip. That lack of execution when we absolutely needed it. We got away with it against Milwaukee. We got away with it against Miami. We even got away with it against Brooklyn in the first series. But that was the difference. All right, Niners talk. Alex Mack retired today, according to Mike Silver. This is not surprising. The replacement sounds like it might be Daniel Brunskill. If you look at Pro Football Focus, Brunskill had his worst year last year, according to Pro Football Focus. That was his worst season. He played 8 games at center in 2020. If you look back at that season with him at center, Pro Football Focus would tell you that he was 22 out of 31 centers in pass protection. Not great. Now, you do have Trey Lance, who's going to move around the pocket much more than Jimmy G. So that might help the sack numbers and the pass pro numbers. But Brunskill is far from somebody that you feel really good about. J.C. Treader is a name that's out there in free agency that, you could look at. Could be a possibility. He played for Cleveland the last couple of years, and he played in that zone scheme with Kevin Stefanski, very similar to what Shanahan runs. So Treader might be one of those veteran guys you can go and get. But this is a big issue to me. And I've been pounding this for the last couple of months. The Niners' interior offensive line is a gigantic question to me. Outside of Trey Lance, it is the biggest question for this football team in 2022. And it just became a bigger question with Mack officially retiring. You've got a first-time starting quarterback. You've got a lot of inexperience right now up front in the middle. That would horrify me as a Niners fan. I would be very concerned by that. You also have an unhappy wide receiver 1. You've got a banged-up tight end 1. But it's really the interior of that offensive line that would keep me up at night if I were the Niners, and especially if I were Trey Lance. Meanwhile, one other quick note, Frank Gore retired from the NFL today. Officially, he retired as a 49er. There was a statement that was released. Pretty much everything you would think. Frank Gore was a great member of the organization. Gore says, I will always refer to the Niners as us and we moving forward for the rest of my life. Pretty much what you would expect. But Frank Gore with a tremendous career.
Real quick, Nick. Real quick. Jerry Rice, the GOAT. You'd probably say Montana. Where does Frank Gore fit on the Niner scale for you?
Oh, gosh.
Just off top of the head.
I mean, I'd put Craig ahead of him, right?
Oh, I think I'll go Gore over Craig.
Are you talking to skill position players?
Oh, no, I'm just saying as far as anyone on the Niners when it comes to the lore of the Niners.
You obviously have Montana.
Yeah, Montana, Rice.
I think Young is up there. Young has to be up there.
I could take it.
Who else? Rice, Craig, Montana, Young are the first 4 names that come to mind for me.
Okay. T.O.?
T.O. he was one of them kind of in the thought process.
Okay.
But Gore's got to be top 6, 7.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he's definitely in the top 10.
You got Patrick Willis there. You got you got the Ravmans. You have the Brian Youngs. You got some guys. It's just where do you John Taylor?
He's definitely John Taylor's a good one. John Taylor's a good one.
He's top 10, but I guess the question becomes for me, Montana and Rice, is he a top 5? Is he a top 3?
I would not put him. I would not put Gore in the top 3 or 5.
Okay.
No, I would not. He'd be on the outside looking in there. But he's one of the best that's been a part of that team, no doubt. Great career. I don't want to see him box anymore, but that's just me. Not because he can't box. It's just, dude played like 16 years in the NFL. I don't think he needs. There's been some questions about his, brain scanning and imaging. I don't know. I don't need to see him box. Don't need to see it. We talk Warriors Celtics with Kelena Azubuike coming up next.
Out with the hot takes and in with the smart takes.
You're a smart guy. You're my favorite talk host here because you say it how it is.
It's the Nick Cattle Show on Sports 1140 KHTK.
All right, let's continue to talk Warriors Celtics here on the Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK. Kelena Azubuike will join us here. Warriors color analyst, of course. You know who he is. Kelena, thanks for joining us. Your time is much appreciated. Let's jump right into it. How big is the availability of GP2, Iggy, and Porter in this series?
It's big because I think that could be one of the strengths of the Warriors. One of the advantages of the Warriors in this series is just their depth. Like, if you look at the Celtics, I believe it was the last two games, Ime Udoka went maybe 7 deep, maybe 8 deep. I can't remember if Pritchard got in. He got in for maybe a little bit that last game. But the Warriors, they pride themselves on their depth, and Coach Kerr really coaches off the feel, and he'll throw you in there. He'll throw Kuminga in there. He'll throw Moody in there if he feels like they can help and be productive in those minutes. And he expects guys to be productive in those minutes and just stay ready. So GP2, he's really been a weapon for the Warriors all season. His defense, when he comes in the game, something good is going to happen. He plays with so much intensity, and he knows his role, and he's excited to get in the game and really make something happen and get his hand on a ball, get a deflection, hound someone for 94 feet. It's just a way of life for him. And the way Coach Kerr just lets him be a little big man and play the short corner and play like a 4-man or a big man and react to drives and all that is just masterful. So he's really found a home here, and they love what he brings to the table. So if he's available, it only helps. And I know Porter, I've just really been impressed with his rebounding and his intentionality when it comes to that. And earlier in the playoffs, he was kind of struggling with his shot, I think, because he was drifting a lot and fading away a lot, and you could see his right leg fly up when he would shoot it, and then he corrected that, and he made sure he was kind of going more straight up and down and making sure he was more balanced. And so his three-point shooting, his ability to stretch the floor, his smarts, his veteran presence, being on the floor, and then the rebounding, like I'm saying, it would be a huge help. So the more shooting, the better. The more rebounding, the better. Great defense. And then Andre Iguodala, obviously, he's another guy that can handle the ball and get the Warriors into their offense and just be that adult on the floor, extension of the coach. His defense is also great, and he still has a lot to give. So that would be a huge advantage for the Warriors if they could have those three guys.
Kalena Azubuike is with us here on the Nick Cattle Show. Kalena, when you look at the biggest thing, if you're the Warriors, the biggest thing that would concern you about this matchup?
Concerning? I don't know if there's anything that concerns me. You think about the Celtics, and people are talking about how they want to be physical with the Warriors and really pound the paint, try to win the rebounding battle, all those different things. But the Warriors have really done a good job of getting in the paint themselves. It's funny that the Celtics haven't scored as many points in the paint as the Warriors have during the playoffs. The Warriors have been the better points in the paint team. Now, it's going to be tough. Maybe the one thing that concerns me is Robert Williams and his shot blocking ability, and can the Warriors get to the basket on him? But I think the Warriors, when they're at their best, they do a good job of running by bigs and shot blockers or involving them in pick and rolls, getting them away from the basket, maybe make them get out to the corner three somehow. If he's playing off of a guy like Looney or someone like that, Looney will do a good job of giving a shooter a handoff screen and let that shooter like Steph or Clay or Jordan Poole come off with some space to shoot it and really take advantage of the fact that they're playing off of someone like that. So just dealing with Robert Williams and the physical defense that the Celtics hope to play of Marcus Smart. Steph Curry's actually had a pretty good amount of success against the Celtics in the past years, and all the physicality of Marcus Smart. I think he's averaging over 35 or something like that. If you take away that last one where he only played like 13 minutes and Marcus Smart rolled up on his foot and Coach Kerr was mad about that one. I'm taking out the whole regular season series, honestly, because when the Warriors won, to be fair, the Celtics really weren't this Celtics team. They were still struggling, and they hadn't figured out their groove yet and hadn't gotten on track yet. So throughout the season series, but yeah, I would just say one thing I think the Warriors are thinking about is Robert Williams and the defense that the Celtics will play. Offensively, I think the Warriors are head and shoulders above the Celtics in their flow. And if the Warriors ever get stagnant offensively and struggle offensively, like we've seen the Celtics do plenty of times, especially in that Heat series where they just had games where they couldn't get right offensively, it looked like. And if Jason Tatum struggles, it seems like the whole team struggles. The Warriors, if they ever have a stretch like that, they can get back into their flow a little quicker. I trust them to get back into their flow a little quicker and find ways to get good looks, get to the rim, keep the movement going. Steph playing with that energy and moving all over the place and running around. And then I trust the Warriors to be able to close out games better. The Warriors are the better team in the fourth quarter. Celtics' best quarter is the second quarter. And obviously in a finals, you want a team to be able to close you out and have that experience. Warriors have that experience. I think they can get to their sets and get better looks and get the guys to shoot that they want to shoot better than the Celtics can in the clutch. So I got confidence in the Warriors in that way because of that.
Last one for you, Kalena. Who do you think wins the series? I'm guessing Warriors by how you've answered these questions, but who do you got winning the series and how many games?
Wouldn't that be a twist if I win against the Warriors? No, I'm going with the Warriors in 6. I feel like I'm just giving the Celtics 6 because I do respect them. I respect Ime Udoka. I played with him in the D League at the time. Now it's called the G League, but we played together when it was like 9 teams. So he's a G League OG, if you want to call him, and he always had the adult in the room vibes. He's a great coach, and his team plays hard for him. But I just think the Warriors' experience will win out, and offensively, the Warriors, the way they move, the way they cut, the way they screen, split actions, the way they use the guys that can't necessarily shoot, and those guys become playmakers and become an advantage when you actually have guys out there that the Celtics don't want to guard. Warriors turn that into their advantage to get guys open shots, to get shooters open shots. And I think the Warriors, actually their shot distribution, their shot selection is a little better to me. Sometimes the Celtics, especially down the stretch, you saw they almost tricked off that Game 7 with Marcus Smart just chucking up threes. I'm like, what are they doing? Like, why is Marcus Smart continuing to shoot these shots? Yeah, he's a guy that's made shots for them, and big shots in the past, but when you want Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, someone else to be shooting those shots, the Warriors, I trust them down the stretch a little more if there's going to be close games in this series. So I got the Warriors.
Kalena, thanks for the time. I appreciate it, and hopefully we get a great series here. Appreciate you.
All right, Nick. No problem, man.
Thank you. There goes Kalena Azubuike. So he's got the Warriors winning in 6. The one thing I will say, and I've read a lot, and I've watched a lot, and I've listened a lot. When I listen to the sides, it seems to me that the Warriors side, when it comes to media and pundits and experts, they are a lot more confident in winning this series than the Celtics side of pundits, experts, and others. It seems, listening to Kalena, he's like, what are they concerned by? I don't know if the Warriors would be concerned by anything. And then he eventually got to Robert Williams. But, I mean, aren't there some concerns that Steve Kerr has to have? Or, I don't know. I don't know. No idea. It strikes me that the confidence on the Warriors side, and I get it. Look, they've been there, they've done it, they've got the experience. Again, I picked the Warriors in the series. It just seems like people picking the Warriors are a lot more confident in that pick than the people picking the Celtics in their pick. The other thing about Marcus Smart versus Steph Curry, let's get a few things straight here. First of all, Marcus Smart was not the starting point guard for the Celtics until this year. So how many possessions did he play against Steph Curry? How many of those points that we keep going back to talking about Curry? I heard Sam Amick this morning say, he's averaged 35 until the last regular season game against the Celtics. Well, yeah. Let's remember, Kemba Walker, right? Kyrie Irving, Terry Rozier, not necessarily great defensive players. So, how many of those possessions? I'm pretty sure I read or heard something that against Marcus Smart one-on-one, Curry's, he hasn't been nearly as good. His shooting is not nearly as good as it is against other defenders with the Celtics. So, I think there needs to be some context with that. If it's Smart versus Curry consistently, will Curry score? Of course, he's Steph Curry. But I do think Smart will make it tougher on him than Kyrie Irving or Kemba Walker or Terry Rozier would. 916-339-1140 is the text line. Phone line 1-800-920-1140. Why did I change my pants in a parking lot over the weekend? The answer next.
Live and local.
Up front and opinionated.
It's the Nick Cattle Show right here on the King of Sacramento Sports Talk. Sports 1140 KHTK.
Oh, baby, I like it raw. Oh, baby, I like it raw. Little ODB for you. Shimmy, shimmy, y'all, shimmy, y'all, shimmy, y'all. ODB was great. You want to talk about unique? So I tweeted this out a couple minutes ago. It seems to me like the one thing that I've picked up about this final series, reading, watching, and listening to a ton of stuff, trust me. I mean, the last 3 days I have just read and listened and watched to a bunch of things. Bunch of breakdowns for this series. The one consistent thing that I'm really picking up on is that most people, when they talk about this series, no matter who they're picking, most people at least sound like they feel that the Warriors are going to dictate how this series is played. Like when you listen to people talk about this series that starts tonight between the Celtics and Warriors, a lot of it is, well, if the Warriors do this, if the Warriors do that, if the Warriors do this, it feels like most that have, been tasked with breaking down this series feel like the Warriors, if they want to dictate this series, they will. And it's going to be fascinating. One of the most crucial aspects of this finals coming up is whether or not the Celtics can impose their physicality and slow the Warriors down. Because when I read and listen and watch people talk about this finals, it almost seems like a fait accompli that, hey, the Warriors are going to run, they're going to gun, they're going to play their style of basketball. So I guess the question is, can the Celtics get in the way of that? All right, we'll have the snake draft coming up in a couple of minutes. It has to do with the finals that start tonight. But I got a story. I got to share a story with you. So I went to Sonoma County over the weekend. We were supposed to go to Las Vegas. I passed up Las Vegas. I canceled everything. I sold my Bill Burr tickets. I might have made a little money off of them. And we decided not to walk into the petri dish that is Las Vegas, at least for now. Maybe I'll go in July. Bill Burr will be there in July. Maybe I'll go in July. But so we decided to go to Sonoma County, my wife Kelly and I, after a lot of suggestions on Twitter. Thank to all of you at Nick C Radio. And we went to Sonoma County. Great. I loved it. Definitely more my style than Napa. And I think if anybody knows me, I think the staff here at KHTK, I've been here for 6 months, I would guess that the staff would probably have told me Sonoma County is more my speed versus Napa. I'm not, nothing against Napa. I'm not a big wino. I don't like to spend way too much money on things that I can get cheaper. That to me aren't much of a big difference. So Sonoma County was great. Breweries. I did not go to one winery. This was my trip. Kelly got Napa. I got the breweries in Sonoma County this time around. So some great breweries. We went to the casino for a little bit, and we did some things. It's a lot of fun. But Friday night something happened. So Friday we knew it was going to be a little bit cooler when we got out there, and yes, it was cooler when we got out there. I had shorts and a long sleeve shirt on. And we go to the first brewery, and I knew immediately that was not going to work out for me. Now, I had a hoodie as a backup plan. I did not think I would be cold top and bottom. So we had a little bit of an issue. Kelly pulls up the phone. I said, is there a Walmart or a Target or anything that sells clothes near us? And I don't want one of those, artsy-fartsy pairs of jeans that'll cost me like $1.50, okay? I don't want that. So we found a Walmart that was 5 minutes away. So we drive to the Walmart. I run into Walmart, and I'm trying to find jeans. And let's just say Walmart does not have the greatest assortment of jeans that you would find in a store. Limited options, and then limited sizes, which makes it even more limited for me because I got tiny, tiny legs. So I got to wear like 29 length. Like it's ridiculous. So I find a pair of jeans, and I'm like, all right, I got to try to see if they fit me. And I go over to the fitting room, and I see that the fitting room is out of order. I don't know what that means. I don't know how a fitting room can be out of order. It just seems like, hey, the door opens, you've got multiple doors. Can you find at least one fitting room that the door works and you can go in there? So I just had to buy them on a whim and guess, hey, these puppies hopefully will fit me. And so I head to the next brewery, and it's like, okay, where are you going to change? You're not going to change inside the brewery. So I had to change inside the back of my truck while Kelly stood guard. And shorts, whoop, go off. Jeans go on. Tucking things in. Making sure everything's okay. And voila, pair of jeans. And for what I had to go through, the parking lot of Russian River, if you've ever been to Sonoma, Russian River Brewing, that was the parking lot it happened in. And put those jeans on. They fit me okay. I was ready to roll, and I was much warmer the rest of the night. But, yes, I changed my pants in the middle of Russian River Brewing parking lot.
Man, someone walks into you, like, doing that, like, okay, you're done with the breweries. You got to go.
I might get arrested. And then with my line of work, that's not good. But I was in the back of the truck. I will repeat that so I don't get in the back of the truck. The windows are pretty tinted. We were away from people. And I had Kelly standing guard. So I thought it was the best option that I couldn't walk in and go, hey, can I go to the bathroom and just change pants? Then what do you do with the shorts? You got to go back to your truck and put them in. It's just a mess. So Sonoma County, a little bit chillier. And I'm going to San Francisco, not this weekend, but next weekend for Dodgers-Giants.
Yeah, bring them pants, man.
Yeah, everybody's telling me, bring them pants and bring them hoodies.
Mark Twain said the worst winter he ever had was a summer in San Francisco.
I was reading a blog last night. We got to go to the snake draft quick here. But I was reading a blog last night from somebody who lives in San Francisco. They do this travel blog. And they said, I don't know if this is true, but they said that the coldest season is summer in San Francisco. And it's just completely backwards. Now, I knew, look, I'm not like, I lived on the East Coast, not Mars. I knew San Francisco gets, chillier at night. I understand it's on the water. I've watched baseball all my life. I'd seen Giants games where, pitchers would put like multiple layers on in the middle of July. Like, I knew that, but I didn't know that much. All right, let's get to the snake draft. Also want to remind you before I forget that it's time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to draft the two rosters from this final series. Best player available. Who you think the best player available is? We start with Chris. It'll go Chris, Jay, and then myself. Go ahead, Chris.
See, I'm like the Kings, where I wish I was further back so I could see what everyone else is doing.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Steph Curry, number one.
So Chris goes with Steph Curry. Number two, JJ.
Jason Tatum.
All right. I am going to go with the next two, which I think are obvious. I will go with Jaylen Brown and Klay Thompson. So I got Jaylen and Klay, and we'll each pick four guys. So now back to Jay.
Yeah, I'm going to take, in a sneaker maybe, I'm going to go ahead and take Marcus Smart.
Ooh. See, it's down to Marcus and probably Draymond, I would think, right?
Yeah.
That's the conversation. Does Chris go Draymond, or does he shock the world and go somebody else?
See, I was worried that he wasn't going to be there, but he is. I'm going with Draymond Green.
Draymond Green, you got back-to-back?
And I'm going to finish it off with Wiggins.
All right, so I will say that's pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was my top 7. Now, I might have had certain guys in different orders. I don't want to spoil it, but those were my top 7. So we've got, we're back to JJ now.
I'm taking Jordan Poole.
Jordan Poole was not my next.
Okay.
I will go at Robert Williams, thinking he's healthy. Hopefully he's healthy. But I think Robert Williams is the next guy. And I'm actually going to double up on Celtics. I'm going to go Robert Williams, and I'm going to go Al Horford as my next two guys.
I was going Al Horford.
My next two guys. So that's it for me. I got, what do I have? I got Jaylen Brown, Klay Thompson, Robert Williams, and Al Horford. I feel pretty good.
Yeah, now I'm kind of stuck here.
I basically have the Warriors and Curry, Draymond, and Wiggins.
Chris drafted the Warriors. So who do you got, JJ?
I'm going to go with, I think I'm going to go with Grant Williams.
Grant Williams.
I'm going Grant Williams, just for the toughness.
To me, it's down to Grant and somebody else. I'm guessing Verlad's going to draft the other person, but we'll see. Your final pick, Chris.
I'm going to go with the big. I've got Looney.
Oh, all right. I had Gary Payton the second.
Yeah, I was going GP too.
So there you go. We pretty much have the same lists, give or take, like swap a spot. But it's fun. When you look at the top 7, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4 Warriors, 3 Celtics. Is how my top 7 broke out. So there you go. Little snake draft action.
No Otto Porter in there for no one.
No Otto Porter. Didn't make the cut. Coming up, how do you find yourself, who do you find yourself rooting for? The Warriors or the Celtics? I want your answers coming up.
Live and local.
Up front and opinionated.
It's the Nick Cattle Show right here on the King of Sacramento Sports Talk. Sports 1140 KHTK.
Talked about how I went to Sonoma County last weekend. Ended up changing my pants in the parking lot of Russian River Brewing. And somebody texted in, 916-339-1140, that they love that brewery. And I gathered that a lot of people love that brewery. When I was in Sonoma County, it felt like 1 out of every 3 people I saw was wearing something that had Russian River on it. Like it was, apparently it's the place. So I enjoyed it. I personally liked some other places better. You can't eat outside at Russian River, which was kind of strange to me. So wasn't a huge fan of that. And the outside area was kind of just a little too quiet. Like when I go to a brewery, I like to have music. I like to have an atmosphere. And maybe it was just the day I went, or I don't know. It was good. It just, maybe it was talked up a little bit too much for me.
In Petaluma, Lagunitas, their brewery is like that. They got like a huge outdoor.
That was one place we had written down that we did not get to. There were a lot of places we had written down. We hit about, I think, 6, 7, maybe 8 through the weekend, and there were still more we didn't get to. And one of them was Lagunitas.
The bad thing is it's like in an industry park, so it's kind of like, but like once you go inside, it's like, oh, this is a really cool spot. They got like stuff set up. They always play music and stuff out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Got to check it out then. I'll make that note in my head. Talking NBA Finals on this Thursday, of course. Warriors, Celtics, they start tonight. The first hour, we asked you who you thought was going to win this series. All 3 of us actually have the Warriors winning the series. Chris and JJ have the Warriors in 6, I believe. I know JJ said that. Chris, it was 6 for you too, right?
Yeah, 6.
Okay, so Chris and JJ have the Warriors in 6. I have the Warriors in 7. And for me, it comes down to execution. I think the Warriors are the more consistent team when it comes to execution. They have executed, especially late in games, better than the Celtics. They've been there and done that. They have the experience in the finals. So I go with the Warriors in 7. I think if both teams are healthy, this should be a fun series. I think there should be some terrific basketball. Hopefully, both teams are healthy. So, we'll see where all of this lands. At the YouTube channel, Sports 1140 KHTK, don't forget you can like us with that thumbs up, and you want to subscribe as well. And I know, look, people go in and out of the YouTube channel because they're not sure if the A's are playing. We always lose some momentum. Hopefully many of you are sticking with us. A full show today, thankfully. But Ray Sandoval says Dubs in 5. Dubs in 5. It could happen. It's possible. I just think this is a 6 or 7 game series. I think both teams are good. It's pretty difficult to win a series in 5 or less games when you get to the finals because the teams are usually so talented. But it might happen. I think this goes 6 or 7. And as I said, I lean Warriors in 7, but we'll see how it all goes. So that's who I am picking. Everybody listening to this show right now should know who I'm rooting for. I obviously grew up in Rhode Island. I spent 30-plus years in Rhode Island. Diehard Celtics fan my entire life. So I'm obviously all in on the Celtics winning this series, okay? I'm actually, this is no joke, I am wearing green and white striped underwear today. Like that's how deep it runs. Now, the last time I went with lucky underwear, they lost. So maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I shouldn't even pay attention to the colors of my underwear. But you know where I'm at. I am rooting for the Celtics. I want the Celtics to win this series. It's obvious. So I wanted to ask all of you, do you have a rooting interest? If you had, and I know JJ and Chris said this in the office before the show. They're like, Nick, I don't want to root for either of them. I understand that. But if you had to root for one, if I asked you this question, if you rooted for the team that won this series, and that meant, if you were right, the Kings would get to the playoffs next year and make a run. Not to the finals, but they would win a series. Which team would you pick? If you had to pick a team to win, and that meant the Kings get to the playoffs next year, you had to pick them, who would you pick? Who are you rooting for? Not who would you pick, but who are you rooting for? Who do you want to see win? If you had to make a choice. Because I think it's fascinating. Before I get to many of the different questions I would have for all of you and how you might view this finals, let's first hear from Draymond Green talk about Marcus Smart and the Celtics?
It's not a much different team, yet, more has been required of them, and they've answered that bell. And so you have to give a lot of credit to him. You have to give a lot of credit to Marcus Smart, who is their leader on that side of the ball. But I think, in order to have everyone come in and play, there has to be some leadership there that's holding that all together, that's holding somebody responsible. And to me, I think that's Marcus Smart. And I think, that plays a huge role in it, but I appreciate that more than anything.
Nick Cattle Show on a Thursday, Sports 1140 KHTK. So I wonder, are you tired of the Warriors? Are you tired of them being in the playoffs and being in the finals? And I know the last couple of years, I know the injuries. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But I do look at all of the different questions as to why you would root for one of the teams and not the other. And I wonder, is anybody tired of the Warriors? They've had that dynasty run. We've seen them win multiple championships in the last decade. Are you tired of seeing Steph Curry and Klay Thompson? Would you rather see somebody else there? Would you rather see, Memphis there? Would you have rather seen, well, I know you don't want to see Luka there. Would you rather see, some of these other Western Conference teams than Golden State? Are you tired of the Warriors? And when I asked myself that question, I then said this to myself, well, do you love Steph just too much? I tweeted this earlier in the week. Again, I'm you know where my allegiances lie in this series. But I can't get myself to not like Golden State. I've always respected them. I've always liked them. I think Steph is one of the most likable superstars in any sport. It's to me, it's just very difficult to not like that dude. Drafted 7th, coming out of a smaller school. A lot of people doubted him because he was a smaller guy. He was rail thin when he was drafted. And he developed and became one of the best players that we've seen play the game. Klay Thompson picked 11th and his road. And then you've got Draymond Green. I think they're a very tough team to dislike. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a lot of you dislike them. But I personally find the Warriors, Steve Kerr. I don't know how you can dislike Steve Kerr. I find this team to be very, very likable. Do you agree with that, Chris? Do you find them to be very likable?
You explained why I don't like them so much. Because they are so likable.
So they're so likable that you're sick.
Yeah, because they're just right down the freeway from us.
Because you can't find anything that really bothers you about them outside of that they're 90 minutes away and, they're doing what they're doing.
What's funny is I'm trying to think about who would I root for, and then I decided that I would root for the Warriors. And it was one of the reasons why it's easier to not like the Warriors. It's because of Kevin Durant, because that would infuriate him so much to see the Warriors get back into it.
I like that.
They get back into it, win another championship, and they did it without you.
I wonder how many people are rooting for the Celtics because they want the same thing to happen to Kyrie.
I was thinking that. I was like, okay, who do I want? See, I don't think it'd bother Kyrie that much.
That's true. He's in his own world. KD is watching every single second of this series and probably tweeting about it on a burner. So you've got the is Steph too likable? You've got the Klay story, him coming back from multiple significant injuries and surgeries. How can you root against Klay Thompson?
Even the guy you would say that could be unlikable, Draymond. I just love Draymond just because he's just got that grit and that just I don't care who you are, what you do, I'm going to beat you no matter what.
And it's interesting because I don't think people feel anywhere near the same way about the Celtics. I don't think anybody, if you're looking at Klay, you're looking at Steph, and you go, how do you not, how can you dislike those guys, right? I do think there's reasons why you could dislike Draymond for sure. I'm sure there's more people that dislike Draymond than the other two. But I don't know if people have that kind of connection with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown yet. And I don't know if it's because they're still young. I don't know if it's because it's Boston and people just don't want to see New England teams win anything because they've won a lot in the past 20 years. But there's definitely not that same feel. It feels like if you're talking about people pulling at the heartstrings are going to go for the Warriors. There's not a lot of people that are feeling for the Celtics and want to see Jason Tatum win. I think more people want to see Steph Curry win. Even though he's won and Tatum hasn't, I still think more people want to see Curry win than Tatum.
Ironically, if it was a rematch next season and the Warriors won, everyone would love to see Tatum win a championship because they saw him lost before.
Yeah, it's like the lovable loser story, comeback, and triumph. Text line 916-339-1140. I'm a Kings fan. Bleep the Warriors. Well, there you go. Again, I don't know how many people feel that way. Al Horford, do you get any kind of feeling about Big Al? The fact that he played the most games in the playoffs without getting to the finals until this year, do you find yourself rooting for Al Horford, or he's just Al Horford? Like, he's not as big of a superstar, so it doesn't really matter. Here's one for you. Do people still care about the amount of championships that a team's won? Like, do they still care about, like, oh, the Celtics have won 17 championships, so I don't want to root for them?
Yeah, I would say yes.
You think so? It's interesting. Because, like, I always look at, like, how much have they won recently, right? Like, the 60s and 70s, 50s. Am I going to get fired up about the 60s? I'm not. You know, like we talk about in hockey, like the Montreal Canadiens and, you know, the Yankees, how many World Series they won way back in the day. So I wonder how many people still kind of look at that and go, oh, they 17 championships. Yeah, but who's been seen more on the bigger stage in the past decade? It's been by far the Warriors. And why aren't the Celtics lovable and huggable underdogs? It's a gritty team that got to the Eastern Conference Finals multiple times only to fall apart. This year they found a way under 500 in January. These scrappers.
I'll give you a couple things. The city plays a part, and I know it does for me in certain aspects when it comes to sports. You know, I think Boston is one of those cities that either you hate it or you like it. There's really no in between. You know, like, I think if you were to say Phoenix, most people are like, it doesn't matter. Phoenix is Phoenix. I think Boston is either on one side of the fence or the other. The other part about it is with the championships, and it may just be my upbringing and the friends and people I've been around, but that's like the barometer. Anytime you talking head, you talking mess to somebody about somebody's team, one of the first things they go to is the brass, the ring, the gold, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, man, I don't want to hear about you having all these championships in the 50s and 60s, and that's kind of your argument. Like, what have they done for me lately? But then at the same time, you know, it's like, man, I can't argue you have so many championships at the same time. So I think, yes, it does matter when it comes to sports conversations and arguments.
Boston is certainly very polarizing. I mean, I know that. I work there. It's polarizing for me. Like, it's a very polarizing city. Chris, the mom, texts in, I'm okay with the Celtics taking it. Hope they're rested and healthy enough. The Warriors have been studying mentally, physically, preparing while the Celtics grounded it out with while the Celtics were grinding it out with the Heat, even though I love Steve Kerr, like the Warriors. Hate their fans. See, I don't have enough experience with Warriors fans. Like, that's one of the things being from the East Coast. I've been here for 6 months. I haven't experienced enough, of the interaction with Warriors.
It's weird. It's different Warrior fan. Like East Bay Warrior fan. I love East Bay Warrior fan. San Francisco Warrior fan, get out of here.
All right. Well, who are you rooting for?
San Jose Warrior fan. Ugh.
If you're rooting for one of these teams, and you should be if you're a basketball fan, you got to find some rooting interest. Which team are you rooting for? You know who I'm rooting for, obviously. 916-339-1140 is the text line, phone line. 1-800-920-1140 gets your thoughts. Also, what's the latest intel on what the Kings will likely do at number 4? Find out in 90 seconds.
It's the Nick Cattle Show.
Nick Cattle.
Text us at 916-339-1140.
Sports 1140 KHTK.
KHTK's 2022 NBA Draft coverage brought to you by Power Business Technology. Visit them online at powercopiers.com. Text line 916-339-1140. KD is why I disliked the Warriors, and KD being gone is why I like them again. Go Dubs. Sonoma County saw a lot of Warriors hats and T-shirts. Lots of those. Lots of those. Ryan Bohamera in the YouTube channel, Sports 1140 KHTK. Boston, I want your thoughts on this, JJ and Chris. You could speak on this a lot better than I could. Boston, minus the past rings, is arguably the 2002 Kings going against the Lakers. Minus the past rings.
No.
You don't agree?
No.
Sorry, Ryan.
I mean, 2002, the Kings were the favorite.
JJ and Chris disagree with you, Ryan. By the way, big update here about this series. Steve Kerr just told the media that all three of their players that were questionable going into this game tonight are available. So Gary Payton II, Otto Porter Jr., so you got 2 seconds. Gary Payton II, Otto Porter II, technically, right? And Andre Iguodala are all going to be available tonight, according to Steve Kerr.
This is big!
Not so sure just yet about the Celtics side. Marcus Smart was not on the injury report yesterday, so I'm thinking Smart is fine. He'll be out there and playing. The big question is Robert Williams. I know there's been some scuttlebutt, as they say, earlier in the day that Robert Williams was expected to play. I would expect him to play with the layoff that they've had. They've had a few days off, so I would expect him to play, but that has not been made official just yet. For the Warriors, it has been made official by Steve Kerr. So they get all three of their guys back, or at least all three guys are available. Of course, you can play some games. You can say all three guys are available and then not play one or two of them or any of them. Say, oh, yeah, they were available. We could have played them if we wanted to. We just decided not to. The text line, 916-339-1140. The Sacramento Warriors fans are the worst because they used to be Lakers fans and jumped on the bandwagon. Verlad JJ, any thoughts on this? Is this in fact true? These Sacramento Warriors fans are the worst fans because they used to be Lakers fans and jumped on the bandwagon.
See, the only thing going for Sacramento Warriors fans is they're not from the Bay Area. So I still contend that San Francisco, San Jose are the worst of the Warrior fans.
Hey, again, I'll go off of what you have to say. All right, let's jump to the Kings here. Pick 4 coming up 3 weeks. 3 weeks from tonight, NBA draft. The finals will be over. 100% of our focus will be 3 weeks from now. What is going to happen with the Kings at the number 4 pick? We can't wait here at KHTK. And a lot of people that have talked about this draft, a lot of people that have written about this draft, a lot of people that we've interviewed about this draft have said the draft starts at 4. The top 3 picks in any kind of order, Holmgren, Smith, Banchero. From what I've seen, it's mostly been Smith, Holmgren, Banchero in that order. But a lot of people are saying this draft starts at 4. And, of course, that means Monte McNair is sitting by the phone on draft night. There could be a lot of teams calling. If those top 3 teams don't want to move and the Kings are sitting at 4, they have that prized pick. Moving up from 7 to 4 could be gigantic for Monte and company. And we've gone through some of the options. They can move up, they can move down, they can move out, they can stick and pick. Dave yesterday with Jason in the morning here, Carmichael Dave said this about the Kings and their approach with this 4th pick.
That sense of how important it is to keep the pick rises the higher that pick is. Had they stayed at 7, 8, 9,
Right.
10, maybe they trade the pick.
Yeah.
But at 4, 3, 2, 1, you can get a superstar anywhere, but your odds of getting a super, and this is their only way they can do it.
Right.
So to me, they're not trading the pick unless the offer is, Donovan Mitchell.
We
and
couldn't say no.
Right. They
like when people say who
trade.
says no, it's like the Kings couldn't.
Could not say no 100%.
Perfect. I love it. That's how they should feel. They should feel we are not going to move this fourth pick unless it is like a no-brainer. Unless this deal is punching us in the face and we've got to respond by doing it because it's too good to be true. We can't pass any of this up. That's the way you should be looking at this. You should not be acquiescing. You should not be talking yourself into making a trade. You should feel like when that phone rings, the person on the other end, if you're Monty, says something that you say to yourself and your staff, it's go time, baby. We can't turn that down. Now, here's the thing. Our list versus Monty's list. Who does Monty value in that way? This is all subjective. So when Dave says, the Kings have to be knocked over to trade that fourth pick, well, is Monty going to be knocked over by what would knock me over? Would it take less to knock Monty over? Is Zach LaVine, for example, somebody that Monty would immediately say, yeah, we can make it some kind of deal here? And I know he's, it'd have to be a sign and trade, and, maybe the Kings wouldn't even have to give up for. But if we're going to live in imaginary world here and fantasy basketball world, you look at LaVine, Jeremy Grant is a name. Is Jeremy Grant? I think Grant's a perfect example because I think some people, including myself, would not trade the fourth pick for Grant. I think there are people out there that would deal that fourth pick for Jeremy Grant. Is Monty one of those people? Bradley Beal. Is he somebody that you would deal that fourth pick? So it depends on the list. It's all subjective. Who's on Monty's list? Who's on my list? Who's on your list? Now, if you hit on the fourth pick, you are going to get younger. You could maybe get better than the person you would bring in. And that's my argument with Jeremy Grant and some of the other players we've discussed. I would argue you'll get a player that is younger than Jeremy Grant, more cost-controlled than Jeremy Grant, and I would argue that within the next year or two, that player could or should be better than Jeremy Grant. Another thing about the conversation is the long-term security versus the veteran. Like if you draft a guy at number 4, you feel pretty good about your chances to have that player on this team for years to come. And yes, certain things can happen. The Bagley situation obviously blew up in the face of the Kings. But when you draft somebody in the top 5, you are usually pretty confident that that guy is going to be on your roster for the next 6, 7, 8, 10 years. And the NBA has made it easier for teams to keep those guys because of the contract structures. So, is Monty looking at this and saying, yeah, we could deal for somebody who might be better than this fourth pick, but that guy could be out the door in like 2 years or a year. Like Jeremy Grant's going into the final year of his contract. If you deal the fourth pick for Grant and Grant doesn't sign an extension and Grant says, I'm out of here, then that's a really big swing and a miss. The other possibility that we have to mention here, this could be playing games. This could be Monty and company floating this out there because they want to drive the value of the pick up. How do you build the value of this fourth pick? By keep leaking to everybody, oh, you got to knock our socks off if you want us to trade this thing. Has to be an unbelievable deal. Don't forget, you can listen live. KHTK.com is the website. Also, don't forget, it's time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. 916-339-1140 is the text line, phone line 1-800-920-1140. We preview the NBA Finals from the Celtics' point of view with John Corrales coming up next.
Nick Cattle Show.
On Sports 1140 KHTK.
Let's talk this final series starting tonight between the Warriors and the Celtics. Joining me right now on the Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK, is my friend John Corrales from Boston Sports Journal. He also hosts the Locked On Celtics podcast. John, let me first start with this season for the Celtics. How unlikely of a run has this been for this basketball team?
Very unlikely. Very unlikely. It's as likely as me running at all. That's how unlikely a run this has been. When everybody references the same thing, 18 and 21 in January, about 5.5 months ago, they were the 11th seed. Everything looked like it was falling apart. They were mediocre. And then things started to click, and they said it would click. They said they had confidence in each other, and we saw why. We saw that finally the coach's message was getting across, that they started to kind of buy into what he was trying to get them to do. And I think, they point to that New York Knicks loss, a 25-point lead that they blew. R.J. Barrett hits a game winner, and they're like, okay, all right, we give up. We're going to stop trying to do things our way. We're going to do things your way. And since then, it's been kind of just an incredible role for them.
Now, I've watched this team an awful lot this year. You've watched every single game from this team this year. For those who haven't been as closely eyeing this team, try to explain to those people the Ime Udoka impact.
Yeah, he really has imparted his personality on these guys. He's no nonsense. He is direct, but it's not my way or the highway type of thing. He wants guys to work hard. He wants guys to be accountable. He will hold their feet to the fire, so to speak, when they make mistakes. No one is safe. He will go after Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart in a film session, just like he will Grant Williams or Peyton Pritchard. So it's not a guy who's capitulating to his stars and, we can't talk to these guys like this. He will get up in people's faces, and he will make sure that they know that they're supposed to be doing a certain thing a certain way. But at the same time, he also treats them like adults that they are. And I think that's the one thing that people don't really get about the NBA. This isn't college where it's a man coaching basically kids, still young. They're young men, but they're still 18, 19.
Right.
These guys are in their mid-20s. They're multimillionaires. They're grown men, and they have to be treated differently. And he gets it because he played, and he understands the work and the attitude. So he gives them the push, but he gives them the respect. And I think there's a good working relationship there. But it's a tough love that they needed, and he's willing to give it to them.
John Corrales from BostonSportsJournal.com, also the Locked On Celtics podcast with us here on the Nick Cattle Show on this Thursday, talking NBA Finals. All right, let's talk about this series now, John. How do you expect the Celtics to defend the Warriors? They dropped some more than I expected against Milwaukee and Miami. Will they continue to play that drop coverage, or should we expect some more switch-heavy stuff?
I think it's going to be much more switching. You play drop against Milwaukee because you didn't care about their shooters.
Right.
You wanted to protect the rim against Giannis, just like you wanted to protect the rim in the Miami series against Jimmy Butler, and you wanted to kind of draw those guys into maybe some mid-range shots. I don't think you want to do that quite as much with the Warriors. I think you want to be switching a lot more, and what you do is you sag off of Draymond Green, and you put Robert Williams on Draymond Green. If Robert Williams is anything close to his normal self, he sags off and kind of protects the rim that way. You get an extra person, and hey, if Draymond hits a 3 or 2, then so what? He's not going to do that all series long. And then if you can do that, then you can stay home on the shooters, right? You chase guys over the top of a screen. You send them into the teeth of the bigs that you have there, Robert Williams and Al Horford. And then the rest of the guys stay home on the shooters because it's going to be the assists that kill the Celtics. If Golden State has 25 or 30 assists, they're going to win by 20. But if the Celtics can limit that and keep those assists to 20 or less, then they have a chance to kind of hang offensively. So stay home on those shooters so you don't get those driving kicks.
John, of course, we can sit here and talk about the schematics all day, but we've got to look at Rob Williams. Can that defense do enough if Williams looks like he's looked lately?
That's going to be tough. And that's why I think the extra few days have been pretty good for him. It would have been better if they had closed the deal in 6 games rather than 7.
Yep.
But, what's done is done. But also, you have 2 days off before game 2. You have 2 days off before game 3. So, maybe he misses game 4 because that's the day where there's like 1 day between games, or maybe he's more limited in that game. But the way the schedule is laid out, it does kind of lend itself to some more effective Robert Williams. We saw when he missed the game in the Miami series, he came back and was okay. So if I'm encouraged by anything, it's that. But if he can't be even like 70, 75% of what he normally is, then they might have to make a decision there and hope that Daniel Tice can step in and be more effective. Because, if Rob plays like he did in Game 7, then that's not going to work at all.
Talking Celtics side of the finals starting tonight, Celtics Warriors. Of course, everybody's looking forward to this series with John Corrales from BostonSportsJournal.com. Also, the Locked On Celtics podcast. Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK. John, if Golden State doubles and or blitzes Jason Tatum, and we saw that especially late in the game from Miami, Golden State does that. If they double or they try to just blitz Tatum more, what's the counter for the Celtics offense to answer that?
Yeah, I think, when he gives it up, there's a couple things that need to happen. The ball needs to move, first of all. When Marcus Smart gets it, if he's the guy, then what we saw against Miami was, he shot it. But that was also, they really worked the clock down, and he didn't always have the most time to go out there and find another shot. So what you need to do, first of all, when Tatum gives it up, and if it's Smart or whoever else it might be, move the ball, work your offense, and then do something for Tatum. Set a back screen, set something where he can do something to get the ball back. I mean, there are give-and-go opportunities where if the guy's coming over to set a screen and you know that they're starting to blitz, instead of waiting for the screen, just pitch it over to the guy who's coming over and then cut and get the ball back. The Celtics don't do the give-and-go very often. They don't do the backdoor cut very often. The whole point is to get the ball out of Tatum's hands. So if you do give it up, then find a way to give him the ball back so he can go out there and score. That's been something that's been a concern of mine from the beginning of the season. I go way, way back to the Dennis Schroeder days.
Yeah.
So I think the Celtics just need to be better at, okay, fine, he's going to draw 2, and you want them to play 4-on-3, but that doesn't mean that Tatum just stands there. Get him the ball back, and then do something to get Jaylen Brown involved too. Some sort of, if you have Smart at the top getting the double, run some action on the weak side with Horford and with Jaylen. Have one of those guys get to the rim and have one of those guys pop out and see if something can't open up behind the play.
If you're Ime Udoka, what's your biggest fear?
If I'm Ime Udoka, my biggest fear is that the Celtics aren't ready for the moment. My biggest fear, as John Corrales, is that the Warriors are too experienced, and I think the been there, done that is a big deal for me. And so, if I'm sitting there with my guys, I'm trying everything I can to say this is just basketball. It's the same dimensions on the floor. It's the same 10-foot high hoop. Go out there and just play basketball. Don't worry about all the other stuff, because younger guys have this potential to fall into the, oh, my God, I turned it over. It's the finals. I got to make up for it. Go out there and just play your game and understand it's a long game. 48 minutes is a long time. It's a long series. You can lose game 1 and it's fine. The Celtics have lost game 1, a couple of times now, and they've been fine. Just understand that it's just basketball. It's on a bigger stage, yes, and all of that, but get out there and Just play your game, and you'll be okay.
Got about 30 seconds, Sean. You got a pick for us?
I'm going to say Celtics in 7. I don't say that with any real confidence at all. I just am going to lean on defense wins championships, and this Celtics defense is better than a lot of people realize. So I'm going to say that they're going to figure out how to turn the Warriors over more than the Warriors can turn Boston over. And points off turnovers, if I'm going to point at any one stat, it's going to be who wins that points off turnovers battle. I'll say that Boston can do it just a little bit better, and so I'll give them the edge and say Celtics in 7.
His name is John Corrales, BostonSportsJournal.com. You can also check him out at the Locked On Celtics podcast. John, it's been great. Haven't talked to you in a while. Great catching up, man, and safe travels.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you later, John. There goes John Corrales. And I said this earlier in the show, and you heard that in John's answer just a second ago. He picks the Celtics, but he doesn't sound too confident. When you hear people pick the Warriors, they're much more confident than people picking the Celtics. Like, many more caveats to the Celtics picks out there. Many, many more. An NBA mock draft that has a riser into the top 5. Who is it? And is that guy headed to the Kings? It's coming up.
New to Sacramento, but not to sports talk. It's the Nick Cattle Show on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Update from the finals. We told you earlier in the show that Steve Kerr had announced to the media that every single player for the Warriors is officially available for tonight's game. Gary Payton II available. Otto Porter Jr. available. Andre Iguodala available. Marcus Smart looks like he's going to be fine and good to go. Ime Udoka told the media just a moment ago that Smart being off the injury list has showed his progress, and he is ready to go. So Smart looks like he's as healthy as he's been in the last week or two. And Udoka also told the media just a few moments ago that Robert Williams is going to play tonight. He will start, and he can play. This is some fun with semantics. Udoka said that Robert Williams can play his normal allotment of minutes, but they're trying to keep him down closer to 20 minutes. What are we doing here? Like, if he can play his normal allotment of minutes, then you should not be actively trying to keep him down to 20, because that means you're concerned if he goes over 20. And so, of course, you could say, well, if they absolutely need him. But the way I read that is Williams is available, and he's limited. And do not expect that guy to play, 30 minutes, which tells me he's not close to 100%. He'll be out there. I don't think he'd be out there if this was the first series of this postseason. I don't think he would be out there if this was game 67 of the regular season. But it's the NBA Finals. He's going to give it a go. And I think it's one of those things where we'll have to see what Robert Williams looks like on the floor tonight to judge how healthy he is, because it doesn't sound like he's close to 100. It doesn't sound that way. I want to get back to the text line for a minute. We were talking about who you're rooting for in this series. 916-339-1140. Text line extremely all in caps. Tired of the Warriors, especially all in caps. Their bandwagon, arrogant, cocky fan base. The rise of Warrior fan is much like the rise of Seahawks fan. And that must have struck a nerve with Chris Ralad, because if I know anything about Chris Ralad, he is not a fan of Seahawks fans. Doesn't like him.
I would love Seattle a lot more if the people from Seattle weren't there.
You see? All right, let's jump to a mock draft on this Thursday. NBA mock draft, 3 weeks away from the draft. Of course, we know Kings picking fourth. Today's mock draft that we're going to look at is from CBSSports.com. It is Colin Ward-Henniger. Colin Ward-Henniger says that Jabari Smith will go first. Not a shocker. Chet Holmgren will go second. And you know who's going to go third. Paolo Banchero. Who does Ward-Henniger have picking? Have the Kings picking at 4? He's got them picking, you guessed it, Jaden Ivey. It's like almost every single mock draft we do. Here's what Colin Ward-Henniger wrote about Ivey. The Kings parted ways with Tyrese Halliburton to get Domantas Sabonis. They'll likely be in a position to get a worthy replacement in Ivey, a dynamic, explosive guard in the vein of Ja Morant. Ivey will fit in nicely as a combo guard next to either De'Aaron Fox or Davion Mitchell, and will help push the tempo for a team that was in the top 10 in pace last season. Don't forget Mike Brown, his 7 years as a head coach, he's been in the mid-20s in pace of play. So that's one of those things we got to look at, because Brown is on record saying that you coach to your talent. The talent last year on this Kings team, it was a team that was top 10 in pace. I think they were 8th in the league. If I remember correctly, they might have been a little bit higher than that, but they were in the top 10. Brown has not been that kind of head coach. Is that because he doesn't like that kind of play? That's not his style of coaching? Or is that because of the Jimmies and Joes that he had on his team? We'll see. More on Ivey. If Ivey's shot develops, he is right there with the top 3 in this draft in terms of ceiling. Now, one of the reasons why I pulled this mock draft is because this is one of the only evaluations / assessments that I've seen about Ivey that it's very confident that Ivey can fit next to Fox. Now, I believe Ivey can be a combo guard. I believe Ivey can fit next to Fox. That is with also believing Ivey will become a better shooter. He improved in college. I think he'll continue to improve. That is the optimistic look. I think he can work. And again, Colin Ward-Henniger says he believes that Ivey could work alongside either of the point guards you have on this roster, Fox or Davion. Another reason why I pulled this mock draft is because of who gets drafted fifth. I know some Kings fans have reached out to us and talked about this guy as a possibility at 4. Benedict Mathurin. And here is what Colin Ward-Henninger wrote about him. I was in love with Mathurin as a prospect before he decided to return to Arizona last year. With the development he displayed this season in terms of shooting and defense, he's now worthy of a top 5 pick in my opinion. Mathurin is the perfect complement to Cade Cunningham. Of course, Detroit has the 5th pick. A smart cutter, explosive finisher, transition menace, and spot-up three-point threat all rolled into one. He also has the length and size to be an excellent switch defender to help Detroit's 24th-ranked defense. Now, if you read what I just read over again, or you listened close enough to what I just shared with you, that sounds like a player that would be a seamless fit with the Kings, doesn't it? Now, I know Ivy's ceiling is seen as higher than Mathurin, but when you think about all of the attributes that Colin Ward-Henninger writes about when he writes about Mathurin, it's a fit for the Kings, like, perfectly. A smart cutter. I wonder if that would work with Domas. An explosive finisher. Look, you always want an explosive finisher. Transition menace. That goes along with, imagine De'Aaron Fox and Mathurin on a fast break. Spot up three-point threat. Well, that certainly sounds like somebody who could fit here, right? You need shooters. You need a guy who can spot up and catch and shoot. So I thought it was interesting. The fact that mock draft said, yes, Jaden Ivey could fit with Fox and Davion, and also they brought up Mathurin rising up to 5. I've seen Mathurin mostly at 7 or 8. Going up to 5 now, if he starts to rise up boards, it's going to be a compelling, intriguing story to follow to see, hey, man, is Mathurin being that late riser? Is he that guy that people thought would be 7, 8, 9? All of a sudden now he's 5, maybe he's 4, maybe even moves to 3. How much does he zoom up the board? And does he become somebody who we absolutely have to look at when it comes to Monty McNair and using that 4th pick? So we'll see how it all falls together. Nick Cattle Show here on a Thursday, Sports 1140 KHTK. I want to stick with the draft. So a video came out of Paolo Banchero, and I don't know if I'd call it a controversy, but a lot of people were talking about this. Here was Banchero during an interview.
I grew up with the Sonics a little bit. I was like 6, I think, when they left. So I never liked the Thunder.
So he never liked the Thunder. He said this in August of 2020. Again, some people made this out to be a controversy, a big deal. Does this matter? I think, look, the argument is that this matters more in the NBA than anywhere else because the NBA is a stars league and the NBA is a best friends league, and players have more power in the NBA. So if a guy gets drafted by a team he doesn't really want to be with, you could see that player force himself out of that city quicker than many other sports. Now, doesn't mean we saw the NFL. We saw Eli Manning play those games, right? He didn't want to go to San Diego. He wanted to go to New York, and we all know what happened there. But I don't think this is a big deal. I just don't. I mean, if you're OKC and you love Banchero, you're drafting Banchero at 2. I mean, he said it. He's from Seattle. There's background. There's a context. I don't know how many people in Seattle like Oklahoma City. They want their Sonics back. So he probably felt like, his heart was ripped out of his chest, where he just kind of grew up and was like, you know what? We're kind of born to hate those people because they have our Sonics. And I should have had the Seattle Sonics to watch when I was, growing up, when I was younger. So bleep OKC. But when you're drafting in the top 3, I mean, Oklahoma City has the 2nd pick. You're not going to draft the guy 2nd because when he was like 16 years old, he said, I don't like Oklahoma City. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, and frankly, it's the franchise's job to win him over. You got to win that guy over. You've got to build a team around him, and you've got to win basketball games, and then he'll fall in love with Oklahoma City. So we'll see. I mean, he could have said a lot worse, right? 2022 social media, something else that could have been much worse could have come out from Paolo Banchero. So the fact he said when he was like 16, I don't like OKC because I'm from Seattle. Yeah. Again, if there's a league that I would think about it for a second and say, oh, that could affect this, it is the NBA because we know the drama, some of the divas in the BFF league, but ultimately I don't think this is the end of the world. Don't forget, you can follow us, Twitter, IG, YouTube, TikTok, Sports 1140 KHTK. Jason Tatum or Steph Curry, who would you rather have? Talk about that next.
If you want live and local talk in the afternoon, this is the only place to get it. It's the Nick Cattle Show on Sports 1140
KHTK.
Started the show today talking about, guess what? The NBA Finals, Warriors, Celtics about to tip off in just about an hour or so. In reality, they say a 9 p.m. Eastern start, 6 p.m. West Coast start. We know it'll likely start at like 20 past the hour. This is not going to tip off right at 6 tonight. It's just not going to happen. And when I lived on the East Coast, that would drive me nuts because I was looking at, being up until like 12:30, 1 o'clock. But we started talking about the Warriors and the Celtics and who you like in this series and why. I picked the Warriors in 7. Both JJ and Chris picked the Warriors in 6. I tweeted out earlier today, who do you think wins the series? And again, I will give you this disclaimer. There are more people from Boston and New England that follow me from my background than anywhere else. So I would expect a lean towards the Celtics. Who wins? Option A is the Warriors. Option B is the Celtics at Nick C Radio. And right now, the Celtics have it. Option B, 55.2%. The Warriors at 44.8%, which is pretty close. Again, given the majority of people that follow me on Twitter are from the New England area. So I'm actually surprised it's about 55-45. So again, I've got Warriors in 7. Chris and Jay have them in 6. But I want to look at the individual stars now. We drafted the rosters at the end of the 3 o'clock hour in the snake draft today. And I was talking about this in the hallways yesterday. Steph versus Tatum. I was listening to Jason Timpf, who does some podcast work for The Volume, Colin Cowherd's outfit. And I was listening to his podcast on this series, and he quickly just slipped in Steph Curry is the best player in this series. And he just said it kind of so quickly and so dismissive that I found myself questioning that. Is Steph Curry the best player in this series? And should it be so quickly surmised? I think this series should be a very good series if the teams are healthy. And I would expect that we won't see much of Tatum versus Steph individually because of how each team plays defense. Steph will be hidden. If you're the Warriors, you don't want him anywhere near Tatum. And I think if you're the Celtics, you want Marcus Smart on Curry as much as possible. But when looking at these teams, and you look at the two stars, you look at Tatum, you look at Steph Curry. If you had to pick one of those players to have right now, who are you picking and why? And I know a lot of people will say Curry just based off of resume. And I get it. Tremendous resume. But I'm actually going to go with Tatum, and I'll tell you why. First of all, he's 24 years old, right? When you look at Curry, what's Curry, 33, 34, somewhere in that range? You're looking at an 8 to 10 year younger superstar in Tatum, 24-year-old, right? When I look at professional athletes, I'm always going to lean towards the 24 versus the Chris.
34.
I mean, he is a full decade younger than Steph Curry. But I don't want to just get it twisted on just age because that's kind of the easy go-to. Another reason why I would lean towards Tatum as the best player in this series, and I'm not telling you he's going to end up playing like the best player in this series. I'm telling you he's the best player out of these two teams. The way the Warriors defend, he could have a bad shooting series. The same thing could happen with Curry. It's not going to all be based off of this one finals series. But when you look at the two players, I will actually credit Steph Curry. I think Curry is a better defender than people think. People trash on him like he's just absolutely terrible and he's a waste. I don't think he's a waste defensively. I mean, I think he's probably close to average. I don't think he's a complete mess. And so I look at the defense, and even giving more credit to Curry than others do, there is no denying that Jason Tatum is a much better defensive player than Steph. He's just much better. You saw him defend Kevin Durant in that first series, right? The ability to defend and also Tatum's versatility. Because even if Steph Curry was, equal to Tatum defensively, the issue is Curry is not equal to Tatum size-wise, his frame. And that's, it's not Curry's fault, but Curry can only defend a select few players. Tatum can defend pretty much 1 through 5, depending on who your center is. If you've got a big-bodied, strong center, he's not going to play that guy. But if you're playing somebody like Milwaukee and they've got Giannis at the 5, Tatum can play every single of the 5 out there defensively. I mean, he can play Drew Holiday. He did. He can play Chris Middleton. He has. I mean, he can play 1 through 5. Curry is strictly 1 or 2, and most likely the 1. And so you not only have the better defender, but you have the better defender who is much more versatile, can defend all of those positions. Size does hurt Steph. I love the guy. He's one of my favorite players of all time. Love watching him. One of my goals next basketball season is to get out to Chase and check out Steph Curry live in action. I've never seen him play in person. I'd love to go see him play at least one game. Love him. But his size does hurt him. His size hurts him defensively, and his size hurts him at times offensively. Look, Steph is a great finisher for his size. But it's easier for Tatum to finish, and it's easier for Tatum, to get to the free throw line than it is in Steph if you absolutely need it. Now, I know what people are going to say. People are going to say, Nick, look, I was listening to you, Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK on that Thursday, and you said that Tatum, you would take him before you took Curry, and you mentioned the defense. But man, oh man, I'm telling you that Steph Curry is so much better than Tatum offensively that I would pick Curry. And maybe you feel that way. Maybe I get some of that pushback. But let me talk to those people for a minute or two. Statistically, this might surprise you. Statistically, on the offensive side, I've got some numbers for you, okay? When you look at the regular season, Tatum averaged 27 points, Curry averaged 25. Tatum averaged 8 rebounds, Curry averaged 5. Tatum averaged 4.5 assists, Curry averaged 6. So Tatum went 27, 8, 4.5 in the regular season. Curry went 25.5, 5, and 6 in the regular season. When you look at their shooting percentages, they're very close. From the field, Tatum shot 52%, Curry shot 53%. Curry had the edge from behind the three-point line at 38%, and that's lower than what Curry usually shoots. I'll give you that. I would also argue Tatum shot 35%, which is lower than what he usually shoots. Both guys from distance weren't as good this year as they have been in the past. Ipso facto, regular season, offensively, you're talking about the same guy. As far as statistics and production, not the same kind of player, but statistically, you're talking about the same production. 27, 8, and 4.5, 25.5, 5, and 6. Very similar shooting percentages. But Nick, what about the postseason? I've got that too. This postseason, Jason Tatum, 27, 7, and 6. Curry, 26, 5, and 6. Pretty much, production-wise, the same guy offensively. Shooting-wise, Tatum shot 50% from the field so far this postseason. Curry has shot 52% from the field. Tatum has shot 37.5% from three. Curry has shot 38%. They're pretty much the same offensive player. Different style, same production. Now I tell you, what about the path? Because the offensive production has been the same in totality. Who has had the tougher path? Who has played against the much better defensive teams? Who has had the tougher defensive assignments? Tatum has had to go through Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jimmy Butler. Steph's had to go through Luka, who stinks defensively. Memphis is a good defensive team, but Denver, not great defensively. So Tatum's had the much tougher path, and he's put up the same production, and he's put up the same shooting numbers as Curry has in this postseason. So really, how much better is Curry offensively? But, Nick, Curry's better in the fourth quarter. All right, this playoffs, you know how many points Jason Tatum has scored in the fourth quarter? He scored 54. Steph scored 53. Now, of course, Steph's played less games than Tatum. What about the shooting? In the fourth quarter, Jason Tatum has been a better shooter this postseason than Steph Curry has been, 48% to 44%. So if you think Steph Curry has this gigantic edge offensively, I would say he doesn't. Meanwhile, I think Tatum has a significant edge defensively. So that's why I lean towards Tatum. Both guys have trouble with turnovers. Both guys get sloppy and careless. Now, again, if we're going off of resume, Steph's the guy. I'm not telling you that Tatum has been a better NBA player than Steph Curry. That's not the argument. I'm looking at right now. I would lean Tatum. I think the better overall player right now is Tatum. Would have been fun if both guys were 25, 26. I'd probably say Curry. But looking at it, again, offensively, you might think Steph Curry has this gigantic gap between himself and Tatum. That hasn't been the case all year long, and it certainly has not been the case this postseason. And there's no argument who's better defensively. Absolutely none. Put that to bed. Who would you lean? Tatum or Curry right now? Who would you take? 916-339-1140 is the text line. Phone line is 1-800-920-1140. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick C. Radio. Get your reaction to Curry versus Tatum. Also, words that should have the 49ers fans out there feeling really, really good. It's coming up in 90 seconds.
It's the Nick Cattle Show.
This, I think, speaks to the power of the media and the power of
the Nick Cattle Show
on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Patrick Donaldson. Curry will be 35 next year, and his shooting percentages from 2 and 3 are his worst this season than all other seasons. He turns the ball over a lot. I would take Tatum. Any other season, I would say Curry. So he's got Tatum this year. Again, if we look at Curry, there's no argument when you look at entire careers. I mean, the resume speaks for itself. We could have that conversation when Tatum's 34, like Curry is 34. But if I'm looking at this in a vacuum, I'm leaning Tatum, and I told you why. I also want to get to some words that have been spoken in the past 24 hours that should have the 49ers fans very, very happy. But let's first go to Jeff. Jeff wants to talk about Steph versus Tatum. What's up, Jeff?
How you doing, Nick? Good show, but
thank you.
I don't think you're framing that question right well. Last time I know that the NBA is not a one-on-one league, and this isn't about Steph versus Tatum. It's about what Steph offers and what Tatum offers. Will Steph do his thing where he brings out the best in his partners, and will Tatum have a supporting cast to help him? Because when you made a comparison between Luka and Tatum, I'll guarantee you that 99% of people are going to say, I'll take Luka.
Jeff, there are two different conversations. Hold on, Jeff. There are two different conversations. That's why we started the show with Celtics versus Warriors, and I picked the Warriors in 7. But when you look at the individual superstar, it's who would you rather have? If you're starting a team, who would you rather have? I don't see the problem with that framework.
Nothing against Tatum. I will always take Steph because he makes the people around him better. Nothing against him. He's a superstar.
So who do you think? Who do you think has the more talented team, Jeff? Right now, is it the Warriors or the Celtics?
I would say the Warriors are more talented.
Okay,
offensively.
Who had the
Celtics
hold on.
are more talented defensively.
I would agree with that, but overall, who's more talented? You would say the Warriors. I think most people would say the Warriors. Who had the tougher path?
Yes,
Who had the tougher path, Jeff, this postseason? Was it the Celtics or the Warriors?
Not the tougher path I might enter. That game or those games that were played by Butler, when you talk about Butler versus Tatum, I thought Butler outplayed Tatum. So
You're not answering the question.
Well,
actually, you are answering the question, actually. So you would say that the Celtics had the tougher path than the Warriors did?
No.
No?
You claim that's a tougher path. Nope.
No? Okay, hold on. Jeff, you think Denver, Memphis without Ja Morant, and Dallas with Luka and Luka only is a tougher path than Durant and Kyrie, Giannis, and then Miami with Jimmy Butler, who plays like a rock star in the postseason? You think the Warriors had the easier path?
You want me to tell you why the fault is? Giannis didn't have his sidekick. The Nets did not have their total team.
The Grizzlies didn't have Ja.
Next year,
The Grizzlies didn't have Ja.
they
Luka
did.
doesn't have
They
a
did have
sidekick.
Ja. That's the whole point.
The
point is each one had their differences. Both made it to where they are. One is number 1 offensively. One is number 2 offensively. The other one, like I said, they both bring two different things. We're going to see whether offense or defense outshines the other.
Again,
no,
Jeff, I went through. Jeff, did you listen to me break the numbers down? Did you again?
I don't go with numbers.
What do you go with then? What do we go with then?
Let me share with you how long I've been watching the NBA.
Oh, it doesn't matter, Jeff. Jeff, it doesn't matter. You can no. All right, Jeff. Have a good day. Have a good day. This is not the Cattles and Jeff show. I mean, look. You can have your opinion. That's fine. Don't sit there and go, oh, I've watched that. Don't be that guy. I've watched the NBA for 45 years, and how long have you watched it? I've watched a lot of NBA basketball the last 30 years of my life, Jeff. And guess what? The game changed in the past 10 to 15 years. So it doesn't matter much what you saw pre-1999, frankly, the way the game is played right now, okay? If your argument is that Steph is a better teammate, and I guess that's what you're getting at, again, I don't know how you can form that argument other than you might believe it subjectively that he's the better teammate. I mean, if you, I would ask those questions, and I think, look, maybe I'm wrong here, but I would imagine the vast majority of people would think that the Celtics had the tougher road than the Warriors did this postseason. Now, I think that's pretty obvious. Maybe I'm wrong, but, I thought it was pretty obvious. And when you look at Tatum, again, who's the more talented team? Like, if we're going to play that game, that's why I look at individual. We're not talking about team. We're talking about individual play and what that guy can bring to a team. Jeff, you're in love with offense, obviously. You think that Steph brings so much offensively to the Warriors that you would take him over Tatum right now. That's fine. That's your opinion. But, I mean, I think to just totally dismiss the idea of Tatum playing defense and – I don't think you could look at I could look at the Warriors and say, well, Steph Curry's so good offensively because He's got Draymond Green. He's got Klay Thompson. He had Kevin Durant. He's got Andrew Wiggins. He's got Jordan Poole now. He's got Steve Kerr, who's a brilliant offensive mind. You're going to take that as me dismissing Curry. I'm not. The point is, if Tatum, you could play that game all day. If Curry was on the Celtics, would he have the same kind of career? Nobody knows. All I know is Tatum is a wing, first and foremost. And in 2022, a wing is much more valuable than a point guard. Fact. So when you look at the wing and you look at the versatility and you look at how he can play both ends of the floor, that's it. It's opinion. That's all it is. Your opinion disagrees with mine. I appreciate the phone call and you listening. But, I'm sorry that you were not happy with the way I framed the question. Maybe actually email Chris Verlatte or JJ before shows and frame questions for us. Well, Jeff, you know what? If you could book this show, it'd take a lot off our plate. So give us 12 segments for tomorrow, and we'll just roll in and we'll follow the Jeff script. Sounds good to me. You got an easy start. Warriors Celtics reaction. There's your first segment.
Nick, I'll say this. I think and I don't know where Jeff was going, and shouts out to Jeff, by the way. I think the question, there is two ways to propose this question for me, is if you're talking about future, give me Tatum. Just based off the age, I think they're similar players. They don't play similar, but everything that you broke down is letting me know that they're pretty close. I think if you're talking about for this series, give me Steph. And I think, I don't know if that's what Jeff was trying to get to, a full circle way of trying to get into it, but I think if you proposed it in those two different ways, which you haven't, you're just basically saying Tatum versus Steph. Who you got? Give me Tatum on the road, for the long run, because he is 24 years old. But if you're asking me who do I have right now, I take Steph.
But that's why, and we're not going to get to the Niners stuff. We'll have to get to that tomorrow. But that's why I framed it the way I framed it. I framed it for a reason, because when you look at the players, like, we don't know what, would we have this conversation like when Curry was 24? Did we know back in, that he was going to go on the run that he went on? And I mean, you can easily look at it and say, well, who Curry has surrounding him, Curry has had the better team for the longer period of time. So I would argue that, Tatum is doing just as much as Curry offensively with less help. That was my point. So, again, if you're looking at offensive production and what these guys have done, Tatum is right there with Curry this season, and he's right there in the postseason. And I would argue that Tatum has less than what Curry has had. So I just don't know how you can say Tatum doesn't make his team he doesn't make his team better as much as Curry does. Well, they're both in the finals. They both have pretty much identical offensive numbers. One guy plays defense, and I don't think it's an argument, by the way. I don't think it's a debate. I mean, Jeff can try as hard as he wants. I don't think there is a debate to be had that the Warriors had the easier path. It's not disrespect to the Warriors. They played who was in front of them.
Yeah.
But when you go through KD, Giannis, and don't give me, KD and Kyrie, they weren't getting along. Like, Kevin Durant almost single-handedly beat the champion Bucks last year by himself. So
yeah, but that's last year. Hold on now, Nick.
No, but
they're not the same team this year and last year, though.
They're not.
Right.
I would argue. I'd argue they have more talent. They're better. But like, you had to get through KD and Kyrie. You had to get through Giannis, and you had to get through Jimmy Butler in Miami. And look, this is not a thing where, like, I'm changing my thoughts on Miami. I said this months ago that Miami was the most dangerous team in the Eastern Conference.
You did. I said Boston was.
And by the way, Jimmy Butler is a killer. Like, we're not talking regular season Jimmy Butler. And that's not just this postseason. Pretty much when that guy gets into the postseason, he's a different dude. Like, he went mano-a-mano with LeBron. Like, when the postseason shows up, that dude, did you see how he played in that series? So, look, Luka is a great individual player, but that Dallas team didn't have a second option that was consistent. And their best big is Maxi Kleber, who couldn't throw it in the ocean and can't defend. So, like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy this theory that the Warriors had the tougher path.
No, they didn't. I mean, anyone would, Stevie Wonder could see that. Absolutely.
Well, not Jeff. By the way, I would also say,
Jeff,
I would remind people, I picked the Warriors to win this series.
Yes.
Like, I picked them to win.
I think they're both, and just to put another 2 cents into the argument, as I'm sitting here looking at, kind of going back to see when Curry got his first All-Star, he was quicker to the All-Star than Jason Tatum. He was fourth year, Tatum a little longer. You look at the projection of where Tatum is and where he's gonna go. I think it's arguable. I get the conversation what you're having. I would argue almost though that Tatum has had more early on than Steph Curry. So I think that's the other part of the conversation is I think the Celtics early on in Tatum's career has been better than Steph Curry's early on career. Because when you go back to like the 09 Warriors and stuff now, we're not talking no Jaylen Browns. We're not talking about, even the Marcus Smarts. We're not talking the Al Horfords. Like there was none of those guys for Steph Curry to lean on. So we got to also look back at some of these things too in the fact of, he's 10 years older. So I get what you're saying, but I do think there is a comparison in that at the age of where Tatum was, where he is now compared to where Curry is. Yeah, but at that same time, hey, look, as we talked about a little earlier, you got to have some championships, right? And this is his opportunity to go out there and jump on one.
People forget because it happened a while ago, but back in 2018, Celtics made it to Game 7 against LeBron and the Cavaliers, and they didn't have really anybody. It was Jaylen Brown and Tatum. Everybody else was hurt, and they lost Game 7. And it was because they shot like 30% from the field. So, Tatum dunked on LeBron, and it was like the highlight of the year and all that stuff, and that was when he was like 19. So, anyway, FS1's Rick Bucher joins us to discuss the finals coming up next.
It's the Nick Cattle Show.
This, I think, speaks to the power of the media and the power of
The Nick Cattle Show.
On Sports 1140 KHTK.
Let's talk some NBA Finals, Celtics Warriors tonight. And I'm joined by FS1 NBA analyst Rick Bucher on the Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK. Rick, thank you for the time. It is much appreciated. Let's jump right in. How surprised are people in the game about the Celtics' complete turnaround this year?
Oh, I think there's if taking a big step back. Sure, there's surprise that they are where they are. I mean, you have a first-year coach in Ime Udoka. You had questions about whether the combination of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum could work, and then you have Marcus Smart calling them out in the midst of the season, and you're expecting that that's going to cause a toxic spill rather than bringing the team together. So the fact that it's gone the direction it has, no doubt that this is not what people expected. But with every team that ends up, I mean, you could go through the Warriors' history, and certainly they had their points where they could have turned left and they turned right instead, and it made all the difference in where they are now.
Yeah, let's talk about the Warriors. Are you at all surprised that they are in another finals after everything they've been through the past couple of years, Rick?
Yeah. Well, and just not everything they've been through, but the history of the NBA, teams don't go to 5 consecutive finals and then fall off dramatically and have all the injuries that I think are a natural byproduct of all those long seasons and grinding and playing all those hard minutes with the same core, and then somehow take 2 years off, reinvent themselves, and come back and are back in the finals. I don't know that there's any precedent for this. And so, yes, no, it's a huge surprise. It's a testament to, obviously, the Warriors finding a way to navigate, adding young pieces that fit, getting lucky, and then just the perseverance of Steph Curry coming back from his injuries, Klay Thompson coming back from his, Draymond Green coming back from his. I mean, keep in mind, these are all guys that had rings. They were made men. They're as Steph Curry said the other day, he doesn't have any more to prove. He just has more to accomplish. Well, once you've proved everything, it's human nature to say, I'm good. Like,
right.
Do I really want to work as hard as I have to get all the way back physically to where I was and maybe not be all the way back because I'm years older? So it really is a testament to just the drive and the pursuit of greatness that those guys have. It is the exception rather than the rule when it comes to human nature, to be honest.
FS1's Rick Bucher is with us here on the Nick Cattle Show. Rick, when you look at the finals, does the path and who's had the hardest make any difference to you, or you just look at this as an individual series?
I don't know if it's the path more so than what I've seen or what the path has revealed. I was coming into the playoffs. I thought that the Milwaukee Bucks were going to repeat as champions, and whether it was the Warriors, the Phoenix Suns that they saw in the finals, I thought they were going to win. When the Boston Celtics were able to knock them off, even with Chris Middleton out, the way they knocked them off, the way Jason Tatum played, the Celtics became my new favorite to win it all. And then I saw them against the Miami Heat. And this was their 4th time in the conference finals. If you look at the bubble as being a little bit different, unique, you could make the case that this is the first time that the Miami Heat were actually in the conference finals with this core under these conditions. So the Celtics should have had a huge advantage experience-wise, and yet it didn't look that way. They got beat in Game 1, didn't look prepared. They lost twice on their home floor. Even in Game 7, they gave up 10 unanswered points to a team that was offensively basically Jimmy Butler and Max Strus.
Right.
So they didn't do anything that impressed me in the way that they played against Miami Heat, a lesser opponent than the Golden State Warriors. And that's what makes me feel like the Warriors should be the favorite to win this series. both on the experience at this level and basically what I saw from the Boston Celtics. I said it, and it's out on social media. I thought that the Celtics demonstrated against the Heat that they were not ready for this bright, hot spotlight, and it only goes up. It's only amplified in the NBA Finals.
Interesting. So when you look at the Milwaukee series, the fact that the Celtics went to Milwaukee Game 6 and beat them, and then beat them Game 7, the Miami series just kind of trumps that to you because it's the Eastern Conference Finals, and it was the most recent thing that happened to that team.
Yeah, and Miami did not have the offensive weapons that certainly that Golden State has. Right. So I just you look, every series is different, and I give them credit for knocking off the Bucks, but they should have used that to if they had replicated what they did against Milwaukee, against Miami, that series does not go 7 games. So whether it was overconfidence or whatever it may be, like that's not a habit that you want to have. And by the way, it's kind of a reflection of how their season went. Like they struggled early on, and you would think at this point they're in this place where they go, you know what, we can't kind of sit back, we can't downshift, and yet we saw them do that after sweeping the Brooklyn Nets. They come in against the Milwaukee Bucks, and what do? They didn't look prepared for that series either. So now they go into the NBA Finals. They've lost Game 1 of the previous 2 series, and they're going to play the Golden State Warriors, who are far more experienced in this atmosphere. They're going to play them on their home floor, and I'm expecting that I'm going to see the best of the Boston Celtics right out of the gate. It's hard for me to imagine. And the winner of Game 1 in the NBA Finals wins the series 70% of the time. So there is no space for the Boston Celtics to kind of, as some people like to say, to play with their food. If they play great and then say, okay, we're in a comfortable spot. No, they need to be all out every game against the Golden State Warriors to even have a chance. And they certainly did not demonstrate that against the Miami Heat.
Rick Bucher with us here on the Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK. By the way, Rick, I mean, I agree when I look at this series, the one thing that I just keep going back to is execution on the Celtics' part in these lulls, and that's really what it is. I mean, you go back to that Miami series, it wasn't Game 1, it was the third quarter. They got outscored by 25. It wasn't Game 3 in Boston, it was the first quarter. They got trounced. And if you have that kind of a lull in a finals game against the better team, you're done for. But I will ask you this. Does it tell you anything about the Celtics that they responded? That, yes, they had those moments, but still, they haven't lost after a loss. They haven't lost 2 games in a row since March. What does that tell you about this team?
Well, certainly it's that they are a gutty team and that they deserve to be here, without question. I'm not saying that they tricked their way into being in the final.
Right.
I'm just saying that the bar is set higher than what they've done to get here. And against the Warriors, you just can't afford that because you're looking at a firepower and a confidence that they have that you just can't play with. You know, half-stepping and having an off quarter against the Miami Heat creates one thing. You do that against you have an off 4 minutes against the Golden State Warriors, and it's going to be a 25-point difference.
Yep.
So that, to me, is ultimately the distinction.
All right, last one for you, Rick, because obviously we gather that you've got the Warriors winning this series. What could go wrong for them? How could they lose this series?
Well, look, Marcus Smart has a history of doing a great job against Steph Curry. Now, it's the regular season, and so, but Steph has shot 29% over all the games that the two have played against each other. If Steph Curry is going to shoot 29%, is going to put the numbers that he's put up against Marcus during the regular season, and they now have to turn to someone else, Jordan Poole filled that ably against Denver. He hasn't demonstrated that same efficiency. Granted, coming off the bench, the numbers are going to be a little bit different. But defensively, he has been horrific. And again, on this stage, the Boston Celtics will find a way to exploit the hell out of Jordan Poole at the defensive end, so that almost no matter what he's doing offensively isn't going to be enough. The one other factor is obviously health. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steph. I mean, all of these guys are at that point where you question, okay, this is another grinding series. Who's going to be the healthier team? If Rob Williams can stay on the floor for the Celtics, if Marcus Smart is okay, versus the Warriors vets who have been here. And look, as good as Jordan has been, Andrew Wiggins, you still need that confidence, soothing, calming presence of the execution of Steph and Draymond and Klay in order for this team to win a championship. I said it at the beginning. Like, I thought they had to have Andre Iguodala there as well for them to win. They've proved that they can do it without him, but they certainly can't. It changes the equation if the Celtics are healthy and the Warriors lose for whatever reason. One of their big three is compromised. That could be enough to tilt the scales.
Rick, appreciate the time. Hopefully we have an excellent series ahead of us, and talk to you soon. I appreciate you.
You got it.
Out with the hot takes and in with the smart takes.
You're a smart guy. You're my favorite talk host here because you say it how it is.
It's the Nick Cattle Show on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Uh-oh, did I start something, Vlad? Did I rattle a few cages? JJ, did you rattle a few cages by booking Rick Bucher on this show? How dare you, sir?
Oh, well, hey, we keep it raw and rugged on the Nick Cattle Show, brother. So, we keep moving.
How dare you? He brought up the idea that the Sacramento Kings could, should, would move to Seattle 10 years ago. Blackballed. Forgotten forever.
He was a little extra. I will say that.
I'm sure he was extra. It's his job to be extra. Look, here's the deal, folks. We're going to have people on this show that you will disagree with. We're going to have people on this show that you might be upset with. That's fun because we get to challenge those people. That's the whole idea of this thing. Do you want the good chip lollipop? You just want people who say things that you love to hear and want to hear? What I'm talking about is that we just had Rick Bucher on the show, and I saw Dave react on Twitter with a what? W-U-T capitalized. Yes, as I said in the YouTube channel, we only want guests to say things that we like or agree with us. Got it? Let's not bring differing opinions on the show or bring someone in who said something that upset local fans. It's friendship radio in the afternoon. The guy said something that made many of you angry a decade ago. Let's never have him on a show again talking about the NBA Finals when he is an NBA analyst for one of the largest sports television stations in the country. You know what? I've got some tough news to break to you, Chris and JJ. I did radio in Virginia Beach in 2012. I'm just going to tell you that I fought for the Kings to go to Virginia Beach. I was front in line. I was pushing hard for the Kings to head to Virginia Beach.
Oh, we got to get you off the station immediately.
That's it, guys.
Wait, what did you say about Sacramento? That's the big one.
10 years ago, I'm out. 10 years ago, I was excited to possibly have the Kings in Virginia Beach. I'm out. Should never walk into Sacramento. Should never. It's not a bad thing, folks, to have people on that you disagree with. That's my point. That's my point. I don't agree with everything he said about the finals. He's a guest. He's got an opinion. Who cares? People get all worked up about opinions. All like, oh, person said something I don't agree with. They got a little extra spicy. They put a little extra spice on the meatball. Like, listen, I don't handle my career like this, and I'm not saying that Rick Bucher handles his career. I don't know him personally. But we all understand that there's some game to this, don't we? Again, I don't play it. But do you think Stephen A. Smith walks around his house and screams and talks the way he talks 24/7, 365 when he's on First Take? Do you think he's like, I want the mashed potatoes? Like, when he's ordering dinner? Like Stephen A. is getting paid, what is it, JJ, like $12 million a year? That dude's getting paid like $12 million a year to put a little extra on the sandwich. So he's putting all the extra that he can, all right? Again, we're going to have people on this show that you might disagree with. You maybe you can't stand them. Maybe you think they should be out of media forever and ever and ever, amen. But we're going to have people on. I'd rather have somebody on the show that said something that got you worked up than getting somebody on the show that says nothing, right? Just says nothing. has nothing to give. So Steph Curry is actually the favorite, according to Vegas, to win the Finals MVP. And look, we all understand this is like what money Vegas thinks they can bring in. This isn't like who they really think could be the favorite, who they think is going to win it. It's who they think people are going to put money on and how they feel about possibly winning that deal. It's Vegas. They don't get into it to lose, okay? Tatum, by the way, is only a plus 180, which isn't like outrageously different. It's not too crazy, right? I think this is going to be a challenging series for Curry. I think he'll be fine, but I think it's a challenging series. I think he's one of the best to ever play the game, so he will score and he will be impact. But it's going to be a little bit tougher. Smart, you heard Rick Bucher bring it up. That Smart one-on-one against Curry, when he plays against Curry defensively, possession-wise, Curry shot 29% against Smart. So Smart tends to play him pretty well. Again, Curry's going to get his because he's so good. But Smart's defends him tough, and you've got the Celtics' length and versatility. So I think it's going to be tough, and the Celtics will switch. They'll make it hard on Steph. He'll get his points because he's Steph, but they'll make it hard for him. Quickly, guest picks. We had 3 guests on the show today. We talked Warriors, Celtics with 3 guests. First was Kalena Azubuike, the Warriors color analyst. Here's what he had to say as far as who he was picking and why.
I'm going with the Warriors in 6. I feel like I'm just giving the Celtics 6 because I do respect them. I respect Ime Udoka. He's a great coach, and his team plays hard for him. But I just think the Warriors' experience will win out. And offensively, the Warriors, the way they move, the way they cut, the way they screen, split actions, the way they use the guys that can't necessarily shoot, and those guys become playmakers. The Warriors, I trust them down the stretch a little more if there's going to be close games in this series. So I got the Warriors.
So Azubuike has the Warriors. Then we had John Corrales from BostonSportsJournal.com and the Locked On Celtics podcast. Here's what he had to say about his pick.
I'm going to say Celtics in 7.
Oh.
I don't say that with any real confidence at all. I just am going to lean on defense wins championships, and this Celtics defense is better than a lot of people realize. So I'm going to say that they're going to figure out how to turn the Warriors over more than the Warriors can turn Boston over. And points off turnovers, if I'm going to point at any one stat, it's going to be who wins that points off turnovers battle. I'll say that Boston can do it just a little bit better, and so I'll give them the edge and say Celtics in 7.
And, of course, we don't have time, and I'm also afraid that people will riot if we played Rick Bucher. Bucher had the Warriors winning the series. By the way, I'm watching ESPN right now. Jalen has the Warriors in 7. Wilbon has the Warriors in 6. Stephen A. has the Warriors in 7. I have the Warriors in 7. Chris has them in 6. JJ has them in 6. Game 1 coming up shortly. Everybody enjoy it. Back tomorrow on a Friday. Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK.